Hello everybody and welcome to my basic guide with tips and tricks for Shipbreaker. I'm Icon, and in this video we're going to cover up some useful things that will help you out getting killed less and getting your shifts done with more efficiency. So, as usual, there are timestamps in the description box, so if you're looking for something in particular, go check them out. You'll find a nice overview of the things that I'm talking about in this video there. So let's get started. I fired up a Difficulty 5 mackerel ship, nothing special, very beginner compatible. We're going to talk about things in this video that are applicable for every ship, not for a certain hull. This video is a generalized one, so stuff I'm talking about here will help you everywhere. So let's get started. First things first, I want to talk about the fact that your grapple is not only a tool made for heaving stuff around. You can also put down your grapple, put down the right mouse button, and if something is heavier than you will propel yourself towards that. Just keep an eye out on your thruster speed. As soon as your thruster speed is going on red, you'll suffer damage if you bump into something. You can use this method of traversing space really effectively to first off get yourself into the range of the ship very effectively. After a couple of upgrades on your grapple, you can just grapple from the kiosk. And of course, the other way around, this is also a very effective way of getting yourself back into the kiosk. Just make sure that before you bump into the structure, you're below a red speed there, which is below 10 meters per second. That's really important. Another thing that I want to talk about are these big dudes over here, the Jaxes. You might already have noticed them, and these guys are your best friends when you want to haul some big parts of the ships somewhere in particular. Because, for example, if we take off the rear section of this ship here, and we want to propel it into the processor, I'll give you an example via a tether line. As you see here, there is a pretty, well, the line is pretty narrow, and it will cross the furnace pretty heavily. And in the past, we've often had the issue of bumping stuff into the wrong ovens. These Jaxes are your friend. You can first attach stuff onto them here. These points there are usable for that, and then you can easily toss the stuff from the Jax either into the furnace or into the processor. Most of the time you will use the Jaxes though to toss stuff into the processor or get access to another part of the ship. They are very versatile, and they really deserve some more mention than the game gives them. And that's why I did this part of the video. Another cool thing that the game doesn't tell you is that your character has hands. Yeah, seriously. If you hold down the X key, here, see, you can see your hands, and you can use them. For what? So, if you're using your hands to in the vicinity of some surface, you immediately grapple yourself and break down with no fuel expenditure. It's pretty useful, and it has a pretty high detection rate of in terms of distance there. So, as you can see here, pretty useful stuff. And if you are ever near a decompressing compartment, which tosses stuff through the air and tosses you through the air as well, hold down the X key. It'll help you not getting whirled away. But as you saw there a moment ago, there is a limit to how far you can reach, and practice makes perfect in that regard. Now, the next part on my list I called basic ship anatomy. And that's what where I want to talk about the fact that every ship hull has a certain layout, of course, how it's made. And studying and learning these is vital for your career, of course. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But what's very worth mentioning is that all ships have a couple of things in common. All of the ships have an outer hull, an engine part, and a cockpit part, and some sort of interior pod. These portions of every ship are present everywhere. You're not going to find any ship which has none of these four parts, and therefore you can use that to your own advantage. I like to use this distribution of ship parts to make myself some sort of a work order. So usually I start out with the engine parts and the outside parts of the ships, and then I stroll on over to the outer hull, and then as the last part I disassemble all the things that are on the inner parts of the hull. And that's a good way of organizing your work. And therefore, it's really worth mentioning that all the ships have the same basic anatomy. They just get larger and larger in regards to these, and therefore you will have to work around and discover how the different ship hulls are working out. So that's all I wanted to say about that, without spoilering you the fun of discovering how that works. Just put that into your work shifts. It's really useful. The next thing on my list is tethers. So tethers, you know, right-click and drop and tether. Wonderful stuff. Learn to use those tethers because they are your best friends out there. You can use tethers for so many different things, and mostly you can use them to move heavy objects quickly through space. The tether is a lot stronger than your grapple, and as you can see here, the best part about it is it allows you to attach certain parts of the ship where you want to have them, and then just forget about them and do your stuff. That saves time and makes you more efficient. Therefore, use your tethers not sparingly, but excessively. The fact that you need to run over to the kiosk and refresh them is only a minor nuisance. It doesn't really cost you any realistic money, and as long as you're earning money while spending those tethers, it really doesn't matter. A few things worth knowing about tethers. When you are holding your right mouse button and you notice that you don't want to put down the tether, just press the Y button and you're going to cancel that one. And every existing tether, like when you're having something like that, while you're not pressing any button whatsoever, pressing Y yet again cancels all active tethers that are currently hanging around. But knowing how to cancel an unwanted tether before plotting it down is really, really useful, and the game didn't really tell it to me, and I was very confused and grateful when I finally found out. So beyond that, well, tethering is something that needs practice, and the longer you use it, the more you'll grow attached to it, and the more you will like it, and therefore just go crazy. And if you ever ask yourself, can I tether this, or can I do this or that with a tether, just try it out. Be experimental. These things are among the most fun parts of the game. Now, enough about tethers. Let's talk a little bit about cutting. So, cutting is done by our good old friend, the laser cutter. We have two moduses, whatever. And that's here, the saw and the point laser. With the point laser, there's one thing I want to mention. When you fire that thing, you see there's a virtual line between the tip of your laser and the red targeting thingy in the middle. Everything that laser touches on the traversal is going to burn. So, for example, if I would start lasering now here, this cut point, most likely that laser would touch that soft crate on its way there and set it on fire. Even worse when that happens to you while you're something like that. This would be absolutely an explosion because you can see the tip of my laser tool is above that barrel. Don't laser like that. Always have a clear, free shot between your target and the laser nozzle. Another thing here about this one. This is one of your best friends. This tool can cut several cut points at once, and it doesn't even matter about the time. It always takes the same amount of time, and what's even best, you can't even move after you've shot. Just take one thing into account. This fires in a straight line, and you've got to control that. So for example, to cut these two parts, I'd be going something like that. I'm holding down control while I'm firing, so I don't suffer from the backdraft of this weapon. Because if you're not holding down control, the backdraft will shove you back, and it's harder to control yourself. On a side note, pretty much every ship has either thruster fuel or oxygen bottles on it, so if you don't want to leave your shift, just be smarter than me and check out if there are oxygen bottles on the ship before you have to go back. But as you can see here with the grapple trick I introduced a moment ago, you can do a lot of shortcutting. We're going to talk about cutting in a second again. I just needed to fulfill my bodily needs. So, the long story short behind cutting there with the tool there is try to use this part of your laser tool as little as less as often, or as little as possible, and try to use this as often as possible, because this is just the much faster tool than the other one. And the point laser is your safety tool. This is where, this is the tool you should use when you're worried to blow stuff up. This one. This tool is when you want to get stuff done real quickly. And this really needs a lot of practice not to destroy anything. Because, for example, we could, of course, laser off this thruster cap here with this tool, but this will most likely result in damages, unless you know that you can just pick up this angle and then it's a safe cut, and the thruster cap won't be damaged. And this way you can save time. Learning all these little tricks, how you can utilize the faster side of your saw, is really something that you should try to get to practice as much as possible if you want to get your cutting faster. And that's pretty much all I have to say for the in-space part. These tips and tricks are pretty useful and usable everywhere, and I hope you find them quite helpful. Let's get into the hab and talk a little bit about upgrades, and then this little tutorial is already done. So all in all, getting your stuff done quicker and quicker is where you're heading practice-wise towards to. And as long as you get after your shift more than 500k, you did a good job and you're on your way of improvement. Always compare your work on yourself and don't stress it out. It's supposed to be fun. All right, let's talk about upgrades here. So our upgrades are happening back there on the table, and the equipment upgrades I just want to cover real quickly. At the laser cutter side, the most important and powerful upgrades, in my humble opinion, lie in the heat capacity, because this allows you to laser through stuff that's really hard to laser through, and of course the range upgrades are just, what can I say, the more range your tool has, the better. These other upgrades here are what I consider quite optional. With the grapple, goes the same. Higher range, massive. The more the better. The strength, also very important, because it makes lifting heavy stuff back and forth a lot easier. With the tethers, try to have as many tethers with the most lifetime as possible, because this is just, I can't stress it out enough how useful tethers are. If I have to favor anything above another, I'd even favor tethers above range and power of my grapple. That's how much I think, how high I think about the tethers. The charged push and all the other upgrades on that is a quality of life thing. Makes stuff easier to be able to push stuff back more forcefully, but really your life is not depending on it. The other two brackets here are way more important. And durability drain is yet again just a nifty little power quality of life thing. With the thrusters, well, fuel capacity is awesome and top speed is also awesome, but I don't value this part altogether too much, because I don't think it's that super important unless you want to be really quick on your shifts. If you have some tokens to spare, invest them into your helmet and into your oxygen capacity. The higher these upgrades, the longer you can work before heading back, and I consider them very, very valuable due to that. The scanner upgrades, you didn't see me use the scanner at all, because I'm personally not a big fan of the scanner totally. It confuses me more than it uses for me. That's just a personal approach. Maybe I'm just a Dumbo in this regard. If you like the scanner upgraded, I worked pretty decently without it so far in even higher difficulty levels, because the altered vision thingy there never really worked out too well for me. But that's a subjective thing, not an objective thing. Last but not least, on your worksuit upgrades, these are the upgrades that I procrastinate the most, because I keep telling myself if I work correctly, I don't even need to take damage. But low tier upgrades here go a long way and don't cost you too many Lynx tokens, but I'd personally recommend you to invest heavily into the laser cutter and the grapple, a little bit more into the helmet, and beyond that, go for your own taste of gameplay. Alrighty, that's all I had on my mind for this video. I thank you so much for watching. Drop your comments down below if you have anything that you want to add into this video. If you have any own tips and tricks that you want to share, I'm all ears, and I'd love you guys to share these with each other, because this way we all know more. So leave a thumbs up, and of course consider subscribing. There's daily content coming up from my side, and of course there's also hundreds of videos, so go check them out if you wanna. Also, in the description box below, you'll not only find the timestamps I spoke about, but also my Twitch channel where I stream quite regularly, and also direct links of support for this channel, because I will do free content, and therefore I can use all the support I can get. Check it out if you wanna, or don't if you don't. I really don't mind. Thanks for listening this long. Have a good one and enjoy. Bye-bye.